On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected. Marie-France Pissier, a celebrated French actress, screenwriter, and director, was found dead in her swimming pool at her residence in Saint-Cyr-sur-Mer on April 24, 2011. She was 66 years old. Though the official cause of death was never fully clarified, authorities treated it as a likely accidental drowning, with no signs of foul play. Her sudden and enigmatic passing sparked speculation and sorrow, particularly given her enduring presence in French cinema and political activism. Pissier rose to fame during the French New Wave, embodying an era of cinematic experimentation and cultural upheaval. She made her mark in François Truffaut's Antoine Doinel series, portraying Colette with an intelligent charm that resonated with a generation questioning traditional roles for women. Later, she expanded into screenwriting and directing, breaking barriers in an industry still dominated by men. Her life and death, therefore, reflected the complex intersections of art, feminism, and the political consciousness of post-1968 France. Her death came at a time when France was already grappling with the legacy of May '68 and the role of intellectuals and artists in shaping public discourse. Pissier, once aligned with leftist politics, had also been a vocal supporter of human rights, including opposition to totalitarianism. The sudden nature of her death, quiet and unresolved, contrasted with the boldness of her artistic and political choices, prompting reflections on the fragility of those who lead lives in the spotlight. In the immediate aftermath, tributes poured in from fellow actors, directors, and cultural institutions, acknowledging her contributions to cinema and social change. While her passing did not shift the course of history, it rekindled appreciation for an era when art and activism walked hand in hand. French television aired retrospectives of her films, and retrospectives at festivals followed, ensuring her legacy would not fade quietly. Pissier's death reminds us that mortality often intrudes without fanfare, even for those who once stood center stage. Yet, we memorialize such figures through the lasting images they've given us, on screen, in writing, and in memory. Her legacy endures in the films that captured her brilliance and in the cultural conversations she helped shape. Don Gordon, a prolific American character actor known for his rugged presence and collaborations with Hollywood icons like Steve McQueen, passed away on April 24, 2017, at the age of 90. His death was due to natural causes, marking the quiet end of a long life spent in the orbit of classic American cinema. Unlike many of the stars he supported on screen, Gordon's death was not marked by public spectacle or widespread media frenzy, but rather by a subdued reverence, a fitting closure for a man who made his mark from the sidelines. Gordon's career spanned decades, with standout roles in films such as Bullitt, 1968, Papillon, 1973, and The Towering Inferno, 1974. His performances, often as gritty lawmen or loyal companions, echoed the cultural values of mid-20th century America: stoicism, loyalty, and a quiet resilience. He represented a generation of actors who thrived on character work, less concerned with fame and more focused on craft. His passing served as a reminder of a bygone Hollywood, one rooted in the studio system and grounded performances rather than celebrity spectacle. While Gordon's death did not shift the course of history or ignite national mourning, it resonated deeply within the film community. For cinephiles and critics, it marked the fading of an era, of the tough, unflinching masculinity often portrayed in post-war American cinema. His collaborations with Steve McQueen in particular cemented a legacy that, while subtle, remains influential in discussions of cinematic style and male archetypes. The quiet nature of his death contrasts with the action-packed roles he often inhabited. Yet it is in this contrast that we find meaning. In an age increasingly driven by celebrity culture and digital legacies, Gordon's steady presence serves as a testament to the enduring value of supporting artistry. His work lives on through film, preserved and studied by new generations of actors and directors. We immortalize figures like Don Gordon not through statues or fanfare, but through the re-watching of scenes where their craft elevates the story. As long as the films endure, so too does his legacy, a reminder that in storytelling, every role matters. Billy Paul, the Grammy Award-winning soul singer, best known for his 1972 chart-topping hit, Me and Mrs. Jones, died on April 24, 2016, at the age of 81. His death from pancreatic cancer was a quiet but poignant reminder of the waning influence of a golden era in American music. It was a natural passing, yet symbolically resonant, as Paul's voice had once stood at the intersection of romance, infidelity, and social consciousness during the turbulent 1970s. Born Paul Williams in Philadelphia, Billy Paul was a product of the city's storied music scene and a key voice in the Philadelphia soul movement. His breakout success came during a time when soul music was not just entertainment, but also a platform for storytelling and political expression. While Me and Mrs. Jones is often remembered for its smooth vocals and romantic complexity, Paul's later work, such as Am I Black Enough for You?, revealed a deeper engagement with the civil rights struggles of the era, a tension between commercial appeal and political honesty that many black artists of his generation had to navigate. Paul's death didn't send shockwaves through the mainstream media, but within the music community, it marked the loss of a soulful craftsman who bridged jazz, R&B, and social commentary. His passing reminded audiences of the power of storytelling in song and the role music plays in both mirroring and shaping cultural identity. In many ways, Billy Paul represented the values of authenticity, artistic risk, and resilience in a racially divided America. In the years following his death, Paul's legacy has been honored through tributes by fellow musicians, soul music retrospectives, and continued sampling of his tracks by hip-hop and R&B artists. These forms of remembrance illustrate how we immortalize artists not just through monuments, but through reinterpretation and revival in new artistic forms. Billy Paul's death reflects our enduring relationship with mortality and memory, particularly for artists whose work captures the emotional truth of an era. His voice remains a ghostly echo on vinyl and digital playlists, reminding us that while artists may pass, their stories and their songs never truly fade. Pat Paulson, a comedian turned political satirist, died of pneumonia and complications from brain cancer on April the 24th, 1997, at the age of 69. His passing marked the end of a uniquely American chapter in political humor, a time when satire, delivered with a deadpan expression and razor wit, became a tool to expose political absurdity rather than simply entertain. Best known for his mock presidential campaigns, which began during his tenure on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour in the late 1960s. Paulson offered biting critiques of American politics at a time when the nation was grappling with the Vietnam War, civil rights unrest, and a deepening mistrust in government. His campaigns for president, though obviously comedic, were filled with speeches that mimicked real politicians' rhetoric, often highlighting the ridiculousness of political doublespeak. His slogan, "Just a common, ordinary, simple savior of America's destiny," struck a humorous yet telling chord with audiences disillusioned by the system. Paulson's death was not met with a national mourning on the scale of major political or entertainment figures, but his influence lingered in the growing cultural space for political satire. Comedians like Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert, and even satirical publications such as The Onion owe part of their legacy to the groundwork Paulson laid, where comedy became a means to hold power accountable. His passing in the late 1990s also echoed the end of an era where television comedy was shifting from subtle parody to more direct, confrontational styles. As America entered a new century of political polarization and media fragmentation, Paulson's calm, ironic approach seemed almost quaint, but nonetheless prescient. In death, Pat Paulson has been remembered through retrospectives, documentaries, and his archived campaign footage, which remains popular online. His legacy lives on, not in statues or museums, but in the continued relevance of political humor as civic engagement. Paulson's story underscores humanity's desire to process chaos through comedy. We immortalize figures like him not only for what they did, but for the mirror they held up to society. In confronting power with wit, Pat Paulson offered a timeless lesson. Sometimes laughter is the sharpest critique of all. Wallis Simpson, the Duchess of Windsor, died of natural causes on April 24, 1986, at the age of 89. Her passing marked the end of one of the most controversial royal sagas of the 20th century, one in which love, politics, and the constraints of monarchy collided with global consequences. Simpson, an American divorcee, is best remembered not for political office or artistic achievement, but for her role in the abdication crisis that forced King Edward VIII to relinquish the British throne in 1936. In the decades leading to her death, Simpson lived largely in seclusion in Paris. After the death of Edward, Duke of Windsor, in 1972, she became increasingly frail and incapacitated by dementia and illness, requiring round-the-clock care. Her final years were marked by isolation, reflecting the high personal cost of the decisions she and Edward made for love, decisions that defied royal protocol and upended centuries of British tradition. The immediate consequences of her death were quiet. There was no state funeral, no great outpouring of public mourning, only a subdued media reflection on her infamous place in royal history. Yet her passing allowed historians and the public to reassess her role not as a schemer, as she was often portrayed in the British press, but as a woman caught in a maelstrom of institutional power, media frenzy, and personal ambition. Wallis Simpson's life and death reflect the cultural and gendered values of her time. As a twice-divorced American woman in the 1930s, her presence was seen as incompatible with the crown. The scandal illuminated the rigid expectations of royal duty and class prejudice, an early glimpse of how the monarchy would struggle with modernity in the decades to follow. In popular culture, Simpson has been immortalized in biographies, documentaries, and dramatizations, including the Crown and Madonna's film W.E. These portrayals oscillate between sympathy and suspicion, reflecting enduring fascination with her enigmatic legacy. Ultimately, Simpson's story is a reminder of how private lives can shift public institutions, and how memory is shaped not just by what people did, but by how their choices defied the conventions of their time. Bud Abbott, one half of the legendary comedy duo Abbott and Costello, died of cancer on April 24, 1974, in Woodland Hills, California. He was 78. His death marked the quiet end of an era that had once defined American humor, particularly during the dark years of World War II, when laughter served as both escapism and morale booster. Abbott's passing came decades after his prime, during a period when the vaudeville and burlesque roots of American comedy had largely given way to television and counterculture humor. While his death was natural, it symbolized the fading of a particular comedic sensibility, fast-paced, wordplay-driven routines that once captivated radio listeners and early film audiences alike. In particular, Abbott's straight-man brilliance in routines like the immortal "Who's On First" showcased a level of timing and rhythm that became foundational in comedic craft. By the time of his death, Abbott had faced financial hardship and a decline in public attention, reflecting the entertainment industry's ruthless cycle of reinvention. However, his legacy had already been cemented. His contribution to comedy was not simply in performance, but in shaping the archetype of the straight man, a role requiring extraordinary discipline and generosity to let the comic shine. This dynamic was crucial to their success and offered insight into the values of mid-20th century show business: teamwork, timing, and the art of giving others the spotlight. The immediate public response to Abbott's death was respectful but subdued. Yet, in the years that followed, nostalgia revived interest in the duo. Their routines were re-aired, parodied, and studied, keeping their work alive for new generations. Abbott was honored posthumously with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and their comedy was preserved in the National Baseball Hall of Fame for "Who's On First." Abbott's death reminds us that fame, especially in the world of entertainment, is both ephemeral and cyclical. It underscores humanity's desire to laugh even in troubled times, and our need to honor those who gave us that gift. Through archival footage, reenactments, and continued appreciation in popular culture, Bud Abbott lives on as a pillar of classic American comedy. Daniel Defoe, the pioneering English novelist, journalist, and political commentator, died of natural causes, specifically a stroke, on April 24, 1731, at approximately 70 years old. He passed away in relative obscurity, despite having reshaped the literary landscape with works like Robinson Crusoe and Moll Flanders, which are now considered foundational texts in the rise of the English novel. Defoe's death came during a time of political and cultural transition in Britain. The Enlightenment was well underway, emphasizing reason, progress, and individualism, values that Defoe's life and writings embodied. He had spent years as a political agitator, pamphleteer, and even a spy, often targeted for his provocative opinions. That he died quietly, reportedly in lodgings while hiding from debt collectors, speaks volumes about the challenges of authorship in an age before intellectual property protections and stable publishing revenues. His passing was not widely commemorated at the time, reflecting both his controversial reputation and the precarious position of writers in the 18th century. Yet in death, Defoe's influence only grew. Robinson Crusoe would go on to shape global literature, spawning an entire genre of survival and adventure narratives. His use of realism, journalistic detail, and moral introspection helped establish the novel as a serious literary form. The delayed recognition of Defoe's genius reflects how societies often overlook radical thinkers until history catches up with them. His work, laced with commentary on colonialism, capitalism, and morality, gained renewed relevance in modern discussions of empire and identity. Monuments, such as his obelisk in Bunhill Fields in London, erected more than a century after his death, testify to a later generation's desire to honor his contributions. Defoe's life and death illustrate the complex relationship between creators and their cultural moment. He lived in an era that valued reason and commerce, but struggled to protect those who shaped its intellectual foundations. His legacy challenges us to consider how we support the arts, confront societal taboos, and remember the voices that pushed boundaries.